Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where we are currently just about done with the painful part of this launch here, and we're going to jettison these engines as soon as they're burnt out now. There we go, and performance will substantially improve. That of course means we're able to turn our sound back on. There we go. Excellent. So at this point, I want to be all the way down at 0 degrees, but I don't want to go quite all the way to 0 right away, because we know we'll likely overshoot it. So let's put ourselves at about 15 degrees here. And this is going to overshoot. The question is by how much? Will it be about perfect? Actually, yes, that's very close to perfect. So we're going to bring this back and put this right at 0 now. There we go. And now we're going basically entirely horizontal. So we're going to continue to burn here, getting just lateral velocity for the moment. We had a fair amount of vertical velocity, of course. This is the same ascent profile that I normally do at this point. So we launched at 85, and then at 10 kilometers apoapsis went to 70, and then at 30 kilometers apoapsis 45, and then you saw from there. So that is the ascent trajectory that we've taken here. So we're using our SRBs here to build this on up. We're already in vacuum at this point. So let's go ahead and extend our solar panels. That'll be fine. Performance is much, much better now that those other engines have unloaded. It's very, very, very silly to me that this is the most economical way to do this. Look at that number of engines. Every dot is an engine. And this is a small portion of our engines. Insane. Well, we've built up a good amount of lateral speed. We're up to around 2.2 kilometers per second there, so that's looking solid. And you can also see our center of mass shifting here. That's why the rocket is apparently drifting off center, because the camera is centered on the rocket's center of mass. So that's fine. Okay, let's go ahead and get ourselves a little bit of distance here. We don't need much, and engine shut down. Excellent. Now we're in a coast phase, and we're going to coast up to the apoapsis, at which point we'll get ourselves into orbit. So 156, circularizing this is absolutely fine. There we go. That'll do the trick. So 513 meters per second looks good. Keep in mind, this engine is electrically fed, so we do need to have battery power for that. You can see we're consuming battery power right now, despite the fact that we do currently have pretty decent... Okay, our panel efficiency is only 6% here. I think this is fine, though. I don't actually care. As long as we have some power flow, that's what we need. So panel efficiency is only at 6% here. I'm wondering why it's so low. Interesting. I wonder if it's just because we are... This is higher above the horizon than I would have expected with this level of panel efficiency. It's fine, though. We don't actually care that much. As long as we have some power flow, that's what we need. The battery is enough to feed this engine for a good long time. Far longer than we need on this burn. So let's take this up to 2x. And as long as we have a decent coast period between burns, our battery will hold out. It's absolutely A-okay. Still at 6% panel efficiency, though. I'm also surprised that we're at 146.3 C on our solar panel arrays. That is surprisingly hot. Huh. That is very surprisingly hot. I guess it's because it's getting direct sunlight and we don't have any radiators, which I don't think exists in this game. So that's fine. That just means that our solar panels are hot, and that's probably why their efficiency is low. It's okay. It doesn't matter. As long as we're getting some recharge rate, that's what's important. So that's okay. Our battery will recharge over time. And now what we need to do is we need to escape in the opposite direction we were before. This time we're going away from the sun. So we're going to do it on this side of the Terminator. And taking a look at this resulting trajectory, we can see it's doing this. Now, Andrew's Comet is our target, and you can see that is quite elliptical. So that means that we're going to want to get ourselves into a fairly minimal escape orbit here. Something akin to, well, not this. Let's turn down that sensitivity a bit. This is because we have an encounter with a moon here. Okay. That moon encounter definitely making things a little awkward, but let's do something like this. This should be reasonably fine. So from here, we'll be able to find ourselves a reasonable position. We're probably going to do a burn sometime around here and make ourselves similarly elliptical and then go for the encounter, but we'll see. For now, this will do. So that'll be in 4.3 minutes. Let's go ahead and burn that. You can see we're back up to 93% battery, so that's fine. How are we doing on this? 144.9C? Okay. We're up to 7% panel efficiency, so that's something anyway. I don't know what, but it's something. So obviously, Andrew's Comet is quite far out here, and it's on its way up to its apoapsis, so this is definitely not an ideal time to transit to it, I don't think. Well, actually, as I'm thinking about that, down here it's going to be moving very quickly, but this is probably still the better transit time. Certainly, if you're looking to optimize, like, the amount of time for transit, right? If you're looking to optimize for that, yeah, that would be the best time. But I'm not sure when the best time delta V would be when it's this widely elliptical. I'd have to think about that. Regardless, I don't really care either way. We've got more than enough delta V to intercept this thing at any point. So it's up here right now, and our intercept is probably going to end up being like out here, which is definitely not optimal, but it's fine. We have more than enough DV for this. I'm not concerned. So we're headed out for now. We are, of course, still over Drew at this point, but not for much longer. How much DV do we have left in this stage? 1.6 kilometers per second? Okay, that's plenty. Eventually, this would probably line up fairly okay, but how long would we have to wait for that? I mean, what's even the orbital period of this thing? I mean, we can kind of estimate it. So this is going to be the slowest portion of its transit. So it's definitely going to be a fairly long period orbit, but that's okay. So we're done with this burn at this point. And it didn't quite get us to where we wanted to go. We weren't quite accurate. Okay, let's lock to prograde. Let's push this out just a bit further. Okay, that'll do. So that's absolutely fine there, as long as we're not impacting a moon. No, we are interacting with Brigo, but we are not impacting. So let's go ahead and warp up to here. Looks good, and then we're going to get through that sphere of influence. We're not really gravity assisting around Brigo. Why did we angle like this? That's weird. Okay, back into the Drew SOI. And now we're looking to exit Drew. Okay, we're barely escaping Drew here, so it's quite a coast. There we go. So that's escape velocity from Drew, and then we're going to need to try to find a transit point. Ideally, we would plan a burn here and bring this out, but you can see here, this is not fantastic timing. What was that encounter? Was that Silero? I think that this is probably a Atraitus encounter. This is not a Andrew's Comet encounter. I'm 99% certain. This is way too big to be the gravitational influence there. Okay, so if we were to change the burn timing to be like out over here. Yeah, that has to be a Atraitus encounter, right? I'm like 45% certain that that's a Atraitus encounter. And it's making things a bit awkward for us. We could give it an orbit here, so that would be basically warping all the way around to here. That buys us a little time, and then we would plan a burn sometime around here or so. That's an interesting approach. It's definitely not an optimal one, but it is an interesting one. We could dial that in with a little bit of radial, probably. And I'm wondering about inclination. It's not bad. But yeah, a little bit of inclination change. Maybe a little bit more radial. Ooh, hang on. 10.5 megometers and we get capture? That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. Okay, let's turn down the sensitivity a bit. Okay. So I want to get a bit closer than this if we can. And by a bit, I mean a lot. So 775, this is starting to go back up. So I see like 464. Yeah, somewhere around here. Okay, looks like radial is not really the way to go here. When we can do this instead. Okay, so that's going to be somewhere around 8,000 kilometers. 4,000 kilometers was the lowest I saw there. Looks good. We can back off a little bit on this inclination change. Losing efficiency there. Now we can get a little closer here. Little closer here. Just a little bit at a time. And just chip away on that distance. Okay, we're going to need to go this way slightly. Even this is getting too sensitive. And we're at minimum sensitivity right now. That's pretty exciting stuff. Okay, this is pretty close to as good as we're going to get, I think. I'd like to dial it in a little closer than this. Actually, this is looking pretty okay. Let's put this at around 40 kilometers. That looks good. That looks good. Let's go ahead and execute this burn. 820 meters per second for the transfer. Definitely a weird time to intercept, but it's okay. So around we go here, and we'll see how good our accuracy is. We'll probably need to dial this in a little bit with a corrective burn. But for now, let's go ahead and warp through this burn. So everything is looking good here. And we'll see how accurate that ends up being. So there's our destination, and this is the direction we're burning to get there. Gotta love orbital dynamics. So we've currently got about, how much DV left in here? 750. Okay, so that's enough to do a corrective burn and a pretty hefty amount of our braking burn, if not all. What's the temperature right now on our solar panel arrays? Way lower. So our panel efficiency is at 10% right now. I think optimal efficiency is 20 Celsius, so that's noted. Okay, so we can see this definitely is going to need a bit of a corrective burn. So let's do a planned burn here. What? Maybe a planned burn out over here. Yeah, that's more like it. I don't know why it did that, but whatever. So let's turn the sensitivity way down. This is going to be a very minute burn, but we're just going to look to dial this in a bit more, like this. This is so sensitive at this point. Okay, best we can do here is... that's pretty close to the best we're going to get, but we can definitely dial it in just a smidge more. Which is the goal. Again, I'd like to get this to around 40 kilometers. So we can just do something like that. 0.01 meters per second. We're definitely going to let that one be auto-executed. I do not want to try to manually execute that burn. And let's see how accurate it gets. It's not burning. Okay, something went very strange here. Well, specifically, it said it's too minute of a burn. So I want to come up over here then and plan a burn up this direction. Specifically, what we want to do is we want to make this a less efficient burn. It was too efficient. So we're just going to dial this in a bit, like so. And you can see this is a much more hefty burn, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Let's change our radial a little bit here out this way. And retrograde it slightly. Yeah, this is a much more extensive burn, which is actually exactly what I want. Okay, so something like that. This is going up. We're going to need to go this way. That's going down nicely. Okay, losing efficiency there. Not much going on the normal aspect. So we're in a pretty good inclination, it looks like. And then I see about 10 megameters there. We're just trying to dial this in a way that is less energy efficient, which is a weird thing to be doing, but the burnout over here, it was just too small for this engine. This engine is too powerful for that. So that's understood. We're going to need to turn down the sensitivity a little bit at this point. Okay, so we're just going to need to carefully dial this in somewhere around here. The gravity on Andrew's Comet is expected to be extraordinarily low, so we're not really getting a lot of like gravitational assist and such. So that's understood. That's a big part of what's going on here and why this is so difficult to get this dialed in. Ooh, hang on. Let's turn that sensitivity all the way down. That's 250 kilometers. Let's get that down a little closer. Sub 100 kilometers. Losing efficiency. Okay. 30 kilometers. This is good. Let's do it. We're just going to go for that. So around we go, and we'll execute this burn. And that looks fine. So 62.8 meters per second, not a very challenging burn, of course. $108 kilometers, I'll take it. So we're going to warp in over here. And we're going to need to get to that SOI change. So we're going to need to do a pretty hefty braking burn when we get there. So we're going to need to continue to warp up. I wonder how long we're going to be in this encounter for. That's an interesting question. So this encounter is going to be in about 15 days. Okay, it's going to be in about 18 hours. This does not look like it's much of an encounter. This is now saying 18.77 megameters. Let's plan a burn here and see about pulling that in a bit. Huh. That's interesting. Very, very minute gravity indeed. Let's see if we can pull that in a little bit. I think this is honestly about the best we're going to get for right now. So we just need to have this encounter actually be here. That would be nice. That would be nice indeed. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this for now. And we're going to try to find that encounter like this. Okay, it was there briefly. Here. We're going to call this good enough. This is not the encounter I was promised, but okay. We're going to execute that burn. And hope that that puts us into the correct position for this. Okay, yes. Now we're going to need a very hefty braking burn when we actually get here. And we're going to need to start this braking burn basically immediately. It's going to be real interesting, that's for sure. 393 meters per second, and we're not going to have a lot of time here. Hang on. How long are we going to have? Okay, barely any. Noted. We're going to have to do that burn immediately. So we need to orient to retrograde. Okay, so this is a Andrew's Comet flyby. Well, this is showing 11.81 hours. That's different. Okay, that's fine. So if that's the case, if we have 12 hours, we can plan a burn at the periapsis here. We're going to need to do a hefty braking burn. We know it's going to be several hundred meters per second, if not more. The gravity of this thing is teeny tiny, right? So we know that we're going to have to do close to our full current orbital velocity to get this down. And let's bring this down to that roughly 40 kilometer mark that we wanted to be at previously. So this is 75, and this is 40 kilometers. Sure, this is close enough. That'll do for now. That's 386 meters per second. We've got just about that entire amount of meters per second in this tank. So let's go ahead and do that. That looks good. So we'll drop our orbit on down, but we are going to have to do a staging event here, which is absolutely understood. And you can see at this distance, our thrust to weight is currently like 3.2 million. That number is meaningless at this distance, but it is funny. It's absolutely funny. Okay, we should be out of fuel shortly. There we go. And let's swap over to this next stage. We no longer need battery for anything other than our gyroscopes, so these solar panels should be absolutely fine. They are not really recharging all that much, but it's okay. We're absolutely fine with that. Oh, we do have the lights on this still, so I guess that's something. We'll burn the power on the lights, I guess. So we've got about another 85 meters per second until we enter orbit of Andrew's Comet, but I do want to circularize this still. So we're going to drop that orbit down. We've got about another 15 seconds of burn time here, so that's looking fine. Also, we need to keep in mind we want our center of gravity to be as low as possible, so I want to pull the fuel from this top hemispherical tank. There we go. And we have completed Tier 1 of Andrew's Comet orbits. Oh, that reminds me. We got an achievement for entering the SOI. I want to see how many people have done this. 0.8%. So actually more people have discovered Andrew's Comet than landed on Volco. Interesting. By 0.2%. Well, that's definitely fascinating stuff. So at the periapsis, we're going to drop this on down, and Andrew's Comet itself, it's just a rock floating in space, which is exactly what we expect to see. Let's just circularize this up, but to be honest, 30 kilometers is still pretty high. That's fine for now. Let's go ahead and execute that. 25 meters per second only. Wow. Our orbital velocity is currently, or it was 0. 87. Okay. Well, this is going to be very easy. What's our current thrust to weight? 45 at this distance? I mean, I'm expecting that we're not going to have any thrust to weight issues whatsoever. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and the actual landing will be next episode. I don't foresee any issues whatsoever. This should be a very simple landing. In fact, we can probably take off and look to do a landing somewhere else. Maybe even on, like, Atraitus. I'm not sure what a transit there would be, but one of the moons out here, perhaps? We'll have a lot of fuel remaining. We'll see if that's a possibility. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Andy McGard, Dark Horse, Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.